Alright, this seems to be the hot thing today, so we're just gonna get into it. First things first, we're gonna start with the S tiers, because I know that there's definite S tier in here. Where's the Duelist? Duelist? Duelist! Duelist is for sure S tier. Duelist has the highest DPS in the game if we're not using, what do you call it? If we're not using animation canceling, highest DPS in the game without spells. Be careful where you put Spoon Chef, I for sure will. Highest DPS in the game if you don't use any spells. It has the most maneuverability in the game in terms of like in combat. Very low cooldown talent. Absolutely incredible. Um, Duelist is like the top of top S tier. You can't beat it. Other S tiers, honestly, I want to put like the Knight in S tier. Seems like a little bit of a crime. Barbarian. I don't like that Barbarian gets locked into his animation on the ground, and a big thing is grounded is not. It's gonna be ugh. I hate grounded so much. So unfortunately, Barbarian's not going to be rated that high. It might be B tier. Can classes, here we go. The Barbarian receives a 20% vitality passive, which is okay. Winter Shout sucks because you have to take damage, which I guess goes along with its passive. But just in general, like the amount of damage you put out is not high enough to warrant taking damage for your talent. I think Barbarian's a solid B tier. Unfortunately. Ranger is a different story. Ranger's passive is Dex? Or is it Strength? Ranger has a 10% Dex and Strength buff, which is amazing, especially with the weapon it's given. The range is nice. I think when I was early on in the game, like brand new to the game, I probably had some of my most successful runs with Ranger. It's very, very easy to move around the map and just kill things from a distance. The unfortunate part about Ranger is the inability to fight bosses in closed spaces effectively. Give it a large enough arena, sure, but like against Lamech, it's just not good. Or even the Void Twins. I would say a good A tier. Boxer has built-in combo. Boxer gets to move through units. Boxer's amazing. Boxer is so good. The only thing Boxer lacks is range, but with how fast you can move through the map, you almost never get hit. Even moving from like 2x2 rooms from one side to the other, it's really, really hard to hit a Boxer. In combat, Boxer is not the best. The only reason Boxer falls short is because uh, in combat range isn't great, but it can also the gloves can pierce through walls, and they have decently significant range, still being melee. Boxer's passive alone makes it so good, though. Boxer's passive is wasted on the exploding boxing gloves, but I would say Boxer's definitely A tier. Definitely not as good as Ranger, at least not as user friendly. Um, Boxer with exploding gloves, it's very volatile. It is very, very strong. I'll give it that. But its passive goes to waste when you get the exploding boxing gloves, and there's a lot of close combat where you're just gonna end up hitting yourself. I think it ends up being B tier, but I prefer it over Barbarian. We can just put Warbow in D tier. I hate Warbow. It takes 2 seconds to fire. You're never using this thing effectively in any sort of combat situation. This is like the worst of the worst. I would never use the Warbow. It's not good. There's not even situations where I can think, that might be good. 2 seconds is way too long to sit still in this game. It's way too long. Um, it doesn't get any help from its class either. Like, maybe with the talent, but you have to wait 8 seconds to use the Warbow, what, 2 or 3 times while the platform lasts? Nah, it's not worth it. 5% crit chance on Knight is amazing. The weapon itself is definitely one of the most usable in the game. It's good, it's solid. It's probably top of A tier. Honestly, I'll say it right now. Where is it? Mage, only thing that Mage is held back by is the spells you roll. If you roll good spells, Mage is 100% S tier. And it's not even close. You get to pierce through walls, you get range damage. That like the weapon itself is not good, but the passive makes up for it more than twofold. And the fact that you can spam spells with it, like if you are in combat and you just spam Flame Barrier on any boss, if you know how to move around the boss, you can do more DPS than most of these classes with weapons. It's so strong. Maybe held back a bit by its mana pool, but that's about it. Mage is awesome. Samurai gets a 20% strength boost, but it is grounded. That being said, even though it's grounded, it has decent aerial attacks. I would put Samurai in A tier. It's probably better than Boxer. Regular Chef, I don't use the pan that much, I'll be honest. But the ability to reflect projectiles, the overall burn damage. Chef has one of the best talents in the game in terms of just like survivability and ability to use for new players. I really like Chef. And it's not because of the pan. It's not because of the pan at all. I'm actually not a fan of the pan. Like if it was just the pan itself, I'd probably put it in like B tier. But in this case, I'd probably put it above Boxer. Spoon Chef, on the other hand, Spoon Chef has the most fun. The only problem with Spoon Chef is not good in close. Like if you're enclosed by walls and ceilings, it's not the best. Having to jump to bounce it off, bank it off of a wall to get crit is awful. But that being said, it is one of the most fun weapons to use, and the crits are so satisfying. I would say Spoon Chef, at least for new players, is probably around top of A, if not bottom of S. I definitely think it's above Knight. That being said, Knight has one of the best talents in the game. I think it goes slightly above Knight, though. What's up, all you cuties? How you doing? Chef is so good first time I did all bosses in one run with him. With base Chef, that's impressive. I didn't like the Chef's basic weapon when I was using him, but he's not bad at all. Speaking of coming back to bad, this is the worst weapon in the game. This is a never use. I am sorry for anybody who likes this weapon, but this weapon is so bad. It's low DPS. It doesn't really do much unless you have like maybe Boxing Bell, but going without relics, is one of the worst weapons in the game. It's not worth using. The only weapon I actually haven't used here, I'll be honest, is I don't think I've used the Thor's hammer much. Mjolnir or whatever it's called. So I'm not going to have the most insight on this, Blunderbuss, or... No, I've used all the rest. Speaking of never use, this is like only good for its utility. And that's the only thing that keeps it out of never used here. This weapon is terrible. Um, Valkyrie. Valkyrie gets like an int boost or something, I think. Or is Valk? Magic crit chance and magic crit damage. Which is nice, but it doesn't help the weapon or the class much. But the ability to deflect projectiles is extremely useful. It actually makes it one of the more usable classes in the game just as a base. I would say Valkyrie's A tier. Definitely above Chef. Definitely above Ronin. I don't know if it's above Ranger or not. For like new players, I don't think it's that useful, but it's got a higher skill ceiling. Probably around there. Okay. This one's gonna hurt. Electric Loot is a never use item. I don't care how much damage it does. I don't care. Like, having to spin kick between every attack makes it awful. There are instances where you have no breakables, no enemies, nothing you can spin kick off of between rooms, and you just go into that room needing to spin kick off of something just to attack at all. It's terrible. Spin kicking is like a very good part of combat, but for like new players, this is never going to be good. I think I killed one boss with this once, and it was maybe because I was bored and had a bunch of free time on my hands and didn't care what was going on. I would never want to use this item, this weapon. It's so bad. The loot, the regular loot, that's different. The regular loot actually has some use, but it's not great. The ability to deflect projectiles or eat small projectiles is the only saving grace, and that is because its range is so dang short. Having to constantly spin kick to deal damage is a great idea until you actually try using it and you realize how bad it is. The range on this weapon just does not work. It's not good at all. This is a C tier. Speaking of C tiers, for somebody to go from S to C tier real fast, this weapon is not good. Having to be a certain height in order to even attack enemies is awful. And this weapon, I don't know if is it worse than the loot? No, it's better than the loot, but barely, because its damage is actually good. But it's not usable. Like, unless you have a bunch of aerial mobility, like extra air dashes and jumps, there's just no way you can reliably use this weapon without taking a bunch of damage in every room. It's not good. It's not good at all. Like, I would use this weapon to defeat the Void Beasts in Axis Mundi, and I would still take damage. You can't use this to defeat, like, a Rod or anything. It just won't work. You're going to hit him, you're going to hit a wall, you're going to hit something. And Enoch, Nama, things, people that, like, change their height regularly, it's very difficult to move around them. Specifically, Enoch. Nama actually will, like, circle around you clockwise or counterclockwise. But Enoch will just beeline for you between attacks. Cannon is one of the highest damage in the game. It does ground you. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't think it's A tier. I think it takes too long to charge the cannon shot, but its DPS will probably make it top of B tier. Plus, the talent doesn't really do too much for the class. Unless you're using the right stick to aim, which who uses right stick to aim? Everybody pretty much uses left stick to aim anyways, right? Controversial opinion. Surfboard is A tier. Surfboard is a really fun item to use. It generally one-shots most enemies that are not bosses or elites. And it's just really, really fun to go around bonking people. It might even be S tier for the music. Because it's the only, well, you know what? It's S tier because of the music. It's the only weapon in the game that changes the soundtrack. And it's a really good soundtrack. Yeah, I feel confident with that. Never use, though. I hate this weapon so much. I will never use this weapon. I don't think it's as bad as these. These are actually, like, basically unusable. This one is usable. I will just never use it. Thank you, Beck. It is... It is taking a good idea and making it bad. This is the good idea. I actually really like these weapons. The only problem with them is they don't do all of their damage at once. And what is the... His passive is like dexterity, right? Or super crit chance. Yeah, 10% super crit chance. The guaranteed skill crits are nice. The only problem is the multi-hit move, which helps sometimes, but the strength scaling on it makes it so that it's not actually as strong as, say, Greatsword with its CPS. That being said, I would probably use him before Boxer. Boxer does have a better set, but being locked to the ground when you're using Boxer makes it just not great. We'll snooze ads. I think we're almost done with this. Dragon Lancer. Don't get me wrong. The only thing that makes Dragon Lancer good is the fact that it can fly. Aside from that, Dragon Lancer is terrible. The Bastion is okay, but you don't have a fast enough weapon to utilize it regularly. I'm thinking this is a B tier. I would definitely use the exploding boxing gloves before Dragon Lancer. Would I use the axe before Dragon Lancer? I might even use the axe before Dragon Lancer. This might be a C tier. This weapon is not good, and having extra armor is not a good enough passive to make up for it. This is a C tier. It's not good. I think it's slightly more usable than the scythe, but that's as far up as I'll put it. Thanks for the biddies, Kelly. I appreciate it. Happy Friday. Um. Okay, other Dragon Lancer weapon. It's great because of its mobility. It's awesome for flying around. That being said, you have to literally run your face into enemies to use it, and you will end up taking damage in return. It also gives you a 20% damage increase taken, which is awful. It basically completely negates the armor passive early game and makes it much, much worse as you scale into late game. That being said, it is usable. You can fly around with it. You can't really fight. That's the problem. Like, the one enemy you might be able to fight is a Rod because he doesn't move. But this weapon is not good. Probably bottom of the C tier. Triangulator, you have to be grounded to use it. This is one of those weapons where it's good against, like, one enemy, that being a Rod, and everybody else is just not good against. It might be okay against like an Enoch, but like True Destroyer Enoch comes in and you're done. What do you do? It is slightly more usable because of its range than the dragon puppet. Is it more usable than? It's probably not even more usable than Dragon Fangs. Astromancer is incredible. Astromancer's passive alone, or yeah, passive and talent alone make it at least A tier. I would definitely use it before Boxer. I'm not sure if I'd put it past that though. It has one of the best passives in the game, for sure. Is it better than? The Comet form makes it better, but I would put it there. Now the Crow Staff is actually the better variant. The ability to fly around, the ability to deal damage without having to actually attack. The main thing that sucks about the Crow Staff is having to have a 1.25 second startup. If it started up faster, it'd be different. But if you ever have to dodge anything or spin kick anything, that startup time is so long. That being said, I do think it's better than the regular Astromancer. I would definitely use it before the regular Ronin. But I think maybe even a little bit better than the Ranger. I definitely wouldn't put it above Valkyrie, though. Speaking of flat out B tiers, like this weapon is great. It gives you infinite height. It's fun to use. But it's just not good enough to it's just not usable enough. Like its DPS is not great since it doesn't do it all at once. And if your target moves, then you're kind of just out to dry. I would definitely use it before the Barbarian's weapon. I would not use it before the Exploding Boxing Gloves, though. Gunslinger? Gunslinger is good. But the thing about Gunslinger is you're locked in a place while you're using it, and only the last shots really do significant damage. The passive on Gunslinger somewhat makes up for it. I might even prefer Blunderbuss over it. I would say Gunslinger is probably like top of B tier. And Blunderbuss is probably somewhere around here. This weapon is not good. Don't use this weapon. This weapon is good for moving around. I would use the Dragon Puppet before using this weapon. It might even be a never use. I would not use this for combat. I would use the Electric Guitar for combat before this. Maybe even Hephaestus. This weapon is just awful. The umbrella is not OP. It's not good. Boxer umbrella. Boxer has so many other options that would make it actually usable. And the fact that it's on the samurai, like it's not getting any help here. This is the only weapon that I have not actually used that much. I know it has a ranged option. What class is it? Valkyrie class. Well, because it's attached to the Valkyrie, it automatically has a good talent to go along with it. Where is Swan Song Rogue Legacy 2? Where are we? Show me the hammer. Wait, where is it? Where's the hammer? Wait, they show the hammer, don't they? Here we go, new weapons. It's a ranged boomerang that returns to you, has a small startup time, and can get stuck in the wall to deal bonus damage over time. This is actually a really good weapon, and I've never used it. I don't know how usable it is in practice, but this looks like an A tier. I would 100% use this. I don't know how its damage is the only problem, so I can't for sure say they would be better than, say, one of these. But if given the choice between this and, say, Comet Form, I might put this slightly above Ronin and Chef above that. I think this is it. These are barely usable. The B tiers are good, but not worth. The A tiers, I would choose these every time. These are just overall good weapons, fun to use. Except one, Valkyrie for me is an S, yeah. Valkyrie's really, really good. I actually used Valkyrie talent to basically, like, Valkyrie talent solos Kayn, which is insane. No love for the Okabone? Okibono? What's it called? Valkyrie talent solos Kayn. That's like the big thing that Valkyrie has going for it. But I would still prefer shield talent over the Valkyrie's talent. There's more cases where it's useful and it gives you more mobility. And the S tier are just best options, best music. Is this the only one that's not center aligned? What happened here? I broke it. I broke it.